In this video, I'm going to tell you who Prince Nezha is, who this god is, how he became one, and how he faced Kong in Journey to the West. Well, the original meaning of the name Nezha ended up being lost, right? It was probably an Indian name, but then Taoism and esoteric folklore gave a new meaning to that name. Well, Nezha would be divided into Na and Zha. The term Na means something like to imprint or to repel. So this symbol would be used to get rid of evil symbols and also negative energies. Then there's the term Zha, which would be the most important part of this deity's name. In Taiwanese tradition, it would be something like the one who shouts furiously, roars, or exercises. Basically, it would be the act of expelling negative energies or evil spirits by shouting furiously, making a lot of noise, or using a divine shout. Well, in that case, what is the meaning of Prince Nezha's name for the Chinese people? And also within the creation of the gods, which would be his main story, or at least the one that tells the most about him. It would be the one who drives away evil by roaring, or more simply, a divine exorcist. Just like you could also drive away evil here on this channel by becoming a member, which is less than 8 Ries and is very little, you help me a lot to keep the work going here. Remember that those who have been members for a long time and started with less than 5 Ries will continue paying less than 5 Ries, okay? But by becoming a member, you would get early access to new videos that will come here, and also access to several exclusive videos, like the ones you see on the screen, and your name will also be immortalized here, just like the people who are showing up there. If you want to leave a like, subscribe, and share too, okay? Now let's keep going. Well, even so, if we take the name Nezha and try to figure out what it means through classical Chinese, or even try to find the roots of where this name came from, we won't find much. That's because actually this word has foreign origins, not from China. The Chinese scribes created this name by trying to imitate the sounds that came from another deity, one that came from distant lands. And the origin of this deity actually comes from Sanskrit, from the Buddhist religion, and also from the Hindu religion. The original name of Prince Nezha would actually be Nalakubara, who would be the son of a very important deity called Vajravana, who would be the celestial king of the north. The original name of Nezha was shortened to Nata, but the transformation of Nezha from what he was before to the image that is very common nowadays, if you search around, basically happened because of syncretism, which is, to put it simply so you can understand quickly, basically when you combine 2 religions into one, or when 2 deities end up being confused as one. For example, what happens with the Orishas and the saints of the Catholic Church. And basically when esoteric Buddhism ended up spreading through China, the Chinese ended up changing the name Nata to Nezha. And they also connected the image of Vajravana with a very famous general in China called Li Jin, who because of his great deeds had ended up becoming a great deity there in China, which is very common in China and even in Japan for great generals and great emperors to end up ascending to deities. That's how the then Nata from India ended up becoming Nezha in China and became popularly known as the 3rd son of the great general Li Jin. But centuries later, during the Ming Dynasty, the author of Creation of the Gods ended up shaping Nezha's image a bit more, removing almost all of his Buddhist and Indian roots heavily influenced by Taoism. In this new version of him, he left everything foreign behind and ended up becoming the reincarnation of the celestial pearl, or Linguzi in Chinese, which I don't know exactly how to pronounce because my Chinese is terrible, being basically a cosmic treasure of pure energy, which was sent to Earth to fight all kinds of injustice and also to bring justice. Nezha, his name, is a direct phonetic transliteration from Sanskrit Nalakubara, or Nata, originally a minor god from Indian Buddhist mythology, son or grandson of Vajravana, the celestial king who protects the north. During the Tang Dynasty with esoteric Buddhism, the image of Vajravana merged with the 2nd Chinese heavenly general, Lin Jin. Consequently, his mythical Indian son was adopted by the Chinese tradition as Nezha, the 3rd son of Lin Jin. Well, Nezha's form also ends up evolving with him as his myth expands, right? That's because when he was born, he didn't have a divine form, let's say a beautiful form. Actually, he was basically a ball of flesh. In short, he emanated a mysterious energy, which made his father take a sword and cut that ball of flesh in half. And then, kind of similar to Athena in Greek mythology, Nezha was born with some things that showed he would be a great warrior, like some golden bracelets and a red sash that vibrated around his body. But does his true form only appear when he commits self-death? Anyway, if you get what I mean, I can't use the exact word here, but after that, he's brought back to life by a Taoist master. At that point, he's already in a completely divine form. He's made of green leaves, lotus petals. He has the form of a young prince, that's why he's also called Prince Nezha, with eternal beauty, eternal youth, and immortality. And he has hair, tied up, and sparkling eyes. In this form, he's free from the imperfections of the mortal world. However, he slightly resembles even those deities from India who, when at war, take on other forms. Nezha, when he goes into battle, basically turns into a raging monster. He has 3 heads and several arms. He stands on wheels of fire that cut through the air. He stretches out his arms and several cosmic weapons start floating around him. He always has a furious expression on his face. Of course, every visual element there, in Nezha's appearance in the creation of the gods, carries a different kind of symbolism. For example, the lotus body that he has. The lotus is born in the mud, but it emerges from the water perfectly clean and pure. Visually, this lotus skin and body represent spiritual independence and absolute purity. It shows that he freed himself from the mud, from the ties of blood and the biological flesh given by his earthly parents, the 3 heads and 6 arms. This miraculous anatomy symbolizes military omnipotence and total vigilance. With 3 heads, he can see the battlefield in 360 degrees in all directions. And with 6 arms, he breaks human limitations, being able to attack and defend himself from multiple enemies at the same time. And his fire ornaments, right, like the wheels and sometimes the spears he is shown carrying, the fire destroys evil and purifies the environment. The constant presence of flames on his spears and on his feet visually defines him as a purifier and exorcist, whose mere passage burns away the negative energy of demons. Well, according to the story of the creation of the gods, Nezha was born during the Shan dynasty. He was born in a military fortress, and his father's name was Li Jin, and his mother was Lady Yin, and the couple already had 2 other children named Jinza and Musa. As you can see, the parents like to give their children names with the same ending, Nezha, Jinza, and Musa. Lady Yin's pregnancy with Nezha took a long time. It lasted 42 months, and one night, Lady Yin was sleeping and she dreamed of a monk and the monk. And Lady Yin ended up dreaming that the monk appeared in her room, placed a golden object on her chest, and said that she would give birth to something very important. When she woke up, she went to ask her husband what those dreams meant, but then she felt an immense pain. It was labor pain. So the midwives were called in while Li Jin waited in another room. But the midwives started to get scared by what they were seeing and ran out of there in a panic, right where Li Jin was. So Li Jin grabbed his sword and went to see what was happening. When he got to the room, he saw a huge ball of flesh in a frenzy, moving from side to side. Li Jin, afraid for his wife, split the ball in half and it opened up like a lotus flower. And then he appeared, not as a baby but already a boy, wearing golden rings and a red sash that shone as brightly as the sun. And after that, they were visited by Taiyin Tianzhenren, who was the monk that Lady Yin had dreamed about. He went there and explained everything that had happened and who Nezha was and his importance to the universe. And he also made him his disciple. And in some versions of the story, it was this monk who gave Nezha the golden rings he wears, which would be the universe ring. And at certain times, Nezha couldn't exactly control his powers since there were so many. In a certain story, he decided to swim in a river. But as he moved his limbs in the water, his power was so great that it shook the entire eastern sea. He even disturbed the palace of the Dragon King Aoguan, who, realizing what was happening, wanted to see the cause of it. So he sent his messenger to see what was going on there. This messenger ended up seeing Nezha swimming there and caught his attention. But Nezha, seeing that the messenger looked like a demon, took on his warrior form and threw his universe ring at the messenger, killing him instantly. And realizing that his son hadn't returned, Aoguan sent his 3rd son there, named Alban. But he also ended up fighting against Nezha. Nezha also defeated him. And not only did he defeat him, but he used his skin to make some clothes as well. Well, you can see that Nezha is also a very powerful being, just like Wukong. In fact, this story of facing one challenge after another, one warrior after another, is very similar to the story of the journey to the west, which I'll talk to you about in a moment, where Nezha and Wukong end up facing each other. In another version of this same story, Aoguan gets so angry with what was happening, with the tremors, that he sends a drought to the region where Nezha lived. And Aoguan demands, in order to restore the waters there, the sacrifice of 2 children. And then that same messenger who visited Nezha the first time goes there to get the children, but ends up finding them playing with Nezha, who doesn't let him take them and ends up killing him instantly. Afterwards, Aoguan sends Alban again, who meets the same fate as his messenger. In another version, which is even a bit darker, to prevent Aoguan from flooding everything, Nezha ends up sacrificing himself. Or also, according to other stories, Aoguan ends up asking 2 of his brothers for help to deal with Nezha. They end up kidnapping Nezha's parents, and in order to rescue them, he ends up sacrificing himself as well. Then Nezha's bones and his flesh are sent to Aoguan as proof. And it turns out that, because Nezha died so young, his soul ended up becoming restless and wouldn't stay in the world of the dead. So he appeared in a dream to his mother and asked her to build a temple for him so that he would have a place to rest. And his mother ended up building the temple, but Li Jin, Nezha's father, thinking that Nezha had only brought him and his family disappointment, ended up destroying that temple. Then some say he set it on fire, others say he destroyed it with a hammer. Either way, Nezha became incredibly angry with him. Well, Nezha's master, the monk, ended up building a new body for him, made of lotus roots, and brought him back to life. And the first thing Nezha did when he was born, and also after receiving some gifts from the monk, right, which were a fire spear in the wind and fire wheels, was to go after his father to kill him. They fought several battles, but Jin ended up realizing that Nezha's immortal body and also the magical items he had received would make him win eventually. So he started to run away and went after his other son, Musa, and asked him to face Nezha. The 2 of them fought, and of course Nezha ended up killing him without much trouble. Then Nezha went after his father again and almost managed to kill him. But he was stopped by a deity named Wenchu, who grabbed Nezha and called out. His other brother, Jinza, who was a disciple of this deity, asked him to tie Nezha to a post and start whipping him. And after that, the monk Taizan Ren, who was Nezha's master, appears and says that all of this was his own doing to teach young Nezha discipline. But apparently this lesson wasn't really learned, because Nezha once again went after Li Jin to beat him up, to kill him, and get his revenge. But this time, Li Jin had the help of another deity. Well, not exactly a deity, I'm not sure if Buddha fits into that, but the Buddha named Hanjen Darin ended up helping Li Jin and told him to hide behind him. And then when Nezha showed up, this Buddha started trying to lecture him, kind of like Kakashi scolding Sasuke, but Nezha didn't care and still went after Li Jin anyway. And at that moment, the Buddha grabbed Li Jin and pushed him forward to face Nezha. But this Buddha did something different. He spit on Li Jin's back, giving him magical powers so he could fight Nezha on equal footing. And when Nezha realized this, he tried to attack the Buddha himself, but this Buddha created a lotus. From his mouth, a white lotus appeared, which blocked all the attacks, and then he released a purple cloud from his sleeve that ended up immobilizing Nezha. And with Nezha immobilized, he did something else. He dropped a tower on top of him, called the Great Pagoda, and made him finally submit to his father. And on top of that, he taught this technique. He even taught this same tower technique to Li Jin, so that if Nezha came after him again, he would be able to handle it on his own. Well, as you can see in Nezha's story, there are some things that are very similar to Sun Wukong's story, right? And that's actually why Nezha was included in Journey to the West. But there, he's no longer a kid who needs to prove his worth or anything like that. He's the great celestial marshal who works directly for the Jade Emperor. He begins participating in Journey to the West in the early chapters. When chaos breaks out there, Wukong has already proclaimed himself the great sage equal to heaven, and he's trying to beat everyone up to take the Jade Emperor's throne. The Jade Emperor then calls the army and sends them to the Mountain of Flowers and Fruit to capture the Monkey King Nezha, along with his father, Li Jin. When they arrive, Wukong immediately mocks Nezha. noticing he's just a kid, right? He says that he was just a boy, that he didn't even have real teeth yet, just baby teeth. He told him to go drink his mother's milk over there. Then Nezha got really mad and immediately summoned his war form, trying to scare Wukong. At that moment, Nezha had 3 heads and 6 arms, and he went after Wukong with the weapons floating around him. But to everyone's surprise, Wukong kind of tries to imitate Nezha's trick because he thought it was really cool. Using his cones, he takes on a similar form, having several heads and several arms. He also multiplies his staff, so it looks like he has several weapons too. The two start fighting there, and you can hear the sound of metal clashing. It seems like a storm is happening in the arena, and the situation is resolved in the most anticlimactic way possible. Wukong grabs some hair from his body and throws it at Nezha. Then, an identical clone of Wukong appears in front of him, and Nezha starts focusing on that clone while the real Wukong goes after him, enlarges his staff, and hits Nezha right on the left shoulder. Nezha falls to the ground, realizing he had been tricked. He was in so much pain that he left and returned to the Celestial Palace, completely defeated. If you watched this far, please like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you next time.